Whyte Povetkin 2 has been pushed back again. Dillian Whyte seems skeptical about Povetkin's reason for pushing the fight back again. He seems to suggest that it's a smokescreen and Povetkin is contemplating retirement, or he has taken a lot of punishment in the first fight and he needs more time to recover. Povetkin's team came out the other day and said that they want him to retire after 2 more fights. So that, in some people's eyes, might lend credence to this suggestion by Dillian Whyte that it's a smokescreen to just kick the can down the road. But whatever the case may be, Dillian Whyte is getting frustrated at this point. He wants to get back in the ring and fight. And he's apparently spoken to his promoter, Eddie Hearn, about possibly stepping in the ring with the likes of Luis Ortiz, Deontay Wilder, or Andy Ruiz. Derek Chisora was also apparently mentioned. I'm not sure whether it was Dillian who mentioned that or Eddie Hearn suggested it. But in this interview on Sky Sports, Eddie Hearn says he advised Dillian against taking on any of those guys and thinks he should just wait for the Povetkin fight. And personally, I think that that's good advice, that he should wait for the Povetkin fight, because he's coming off a devastating knockout loss. You don't know how it's going to affect him psychologically, how it's going to affect his punch resistance. If he was to fight Wilder or Andy Ruiz next, I'm picking Wilder or Andy Ruiz to beat him in a heartbeat. With Luis Ortiz, given his age and given the fact that he's also suffered a devastating knockout loss in the not too distant past, I'd give Dillian Whyte more of a shot in the Luis Ortiz fight. But against the other two, nah, I'm taking Andy Ruiz over. In fact, even before Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua, some of you may remember this, I said in a couple videos that I would take Andy Ruiz to beat Dillian Whyte. I've always felt like his style and his ability is all wrong for Dillian. And I've always said that I believe Deontay Wilder would beat Dillian Whyte. But with Luis Ortiz, I think that's a more reasonable fight for Dillian. But Ortiz can still punch. He still has his technique. And he has been in the ring recently. With Andy Ruiz, he hasn't fought since the AJ rematch, which was when, December last year. So we're talking about a year out the ring for Andy Ruiz. And for Deontay Wilder, he fought in, when was it, February against Tyson Fury in their rematch. Luis Ortiz fought just a few weeks ago. So he might be the sharper of the three, although because of his age, I think that would be negated. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think it's a good idea for Dillian Whyte to fight any of these guys right now while he waits for the Povetkin rematch? I think it's a very bad idea, but it's interesting from a psychological point of view, isn't it? That even though Dillian Whyte got knocked out badly, he's still looking to go in against dangerous opponents in interim fights. Maybe it's just about the money. Maybe he wants to keep the money coming in. Maybe he's got stuff to pay for. I mean, he's already made a lot of money in his career anyway. Has he squandered it? Has he looked after it? Does he have projects that he needs to pump money into? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that the Alexander Povetkin fight didn't make him as much money as it would have had there been a crowd and had the economic situation been what it was back in 2019. So maybe he's, trying to have a fight in the interim because of the fact that 2020 hasn't been as lucrative for him as he would have expected. But still, if you're looking to stay in the game long term, I think it's a bad idea to be taking on a Deontay Wilder or Andy Ruiz next while he waits for the Povetkin rematch. And even Luis Ortiz, to be honest with you, I would advise against that at this moment. If he wants to fight Ortiz a couple fights down the line, I'd be like, okay. But right now, when he's so close to becoming the WBC mandatory again, if he can just get that win over Povetkin. And look, even though Povetkin will surely have to be the favorite in the rematch, he's only going to be a marginal favorite, because he was down several times against Dillian Whyte. He was getting outboxed. He came out with a tremendous punch and scored a knockout, but that was against the run of play. It looked, for all intents and purposes, at the end of that 4th round, that Povetkin was out of there. In fact, I was quite surprised at how one-sided it had been up to that point. I know Povetkin was doing some good work in there with body shots and he was getting into good positions. But that 4th round, he took such stick. 2 knockdowns and a lot of heavy punches. It didn't look like he was going to last long. So in their rematch, the odds are going to have to be pretty tight in terms of who's going to win, the betting odds. So anyway, just an update there on the Dillian Whyte-Povetkin rematch. Dillian Whyte contemplating fighting Ortiz, Wilder, or Andy Ruiz. Do you agree with me that Wilder and Andy Ruiz would beat Dillian Whyte? What do you feel about the Luis Ortiz fight? Also, one thing I have forgot to mention here is the fact that Luis Ortiz is a southpaw. I've never seen Dillian Whyte fight a southpaw. I'm not saying he hasn't. I've just never seen him fight a southpaw. Or at least I can't remember him fighting a southpaw. And generally with southpaws, the straight right hand down the pipe is the key punch for an orthodox fighter. Dillian Whyte relies on his jab a lot. When you're fighting a southpaw, they generally take your jab away and they land their jab on you. And Dillian Whyte's straight right hand is not that good. He's not that, accurate and prolific with his straight right hand. His left hook is his Sunday punch, his left hook and his jab. So, how many issues would he have dealing with a southpaw in Luis Ortiz? Maybe he'd have all types of issues, for all I know, from a stylistic point of view. But if he's able to deal with a southpaw style, then that's it's a winnable fight. It's still a dangerous fight, especially coming off a knockout loss. Ortiz has had more time to recover mentally from his knockout loss to Wilder. It was, longer ago, and he's been back in the ring since. Whereas Dillian Whyte is fresh off his knockout defeat to Povetkin. But either way, that's how I feel about those 3 opponents. I agree with Eddie Hearn. I think he should wait and not take a fight in the meantime. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below.